Right, I know it's been ages since we did a video on the R36 Passat. I have been working on the car in the background, but because it's the first restoration style project that I've done on the channel, things have taken longer than I initially anticipated. One of the main issues is that a lot of parts of this car are on back order, leaving you to be sitting around doing nothing, waiting with a half disassembled car. But irrespective of all of this, I did start filming this episode back in December, but decided to put it on hold until the Scirocco conversion was announced, as this would mean we'd have a whole 3.6 litre CC to take parts from if needed. The goal for today was to get the car ready for its first test drive, but as you've probably seen by the thumbnail, that plan does change a bit later in the video, but we'll get into all of that then. And in terms of a quick recap on the last episode, we pretty much finished the front half of the underside rust treatment and then bolted up the remaining suspension components. Pretty much all that was left was the various bits of trim like the arch liners and to refit the exhaust. Currently this car is completely standard, and whilst it may not be the loudest thing in the world, I do quite like the sound of a stock VR6. So rather than replacing it with something shiny, I opted to try and quote restore it. So the process began with some auto-sol metal polish, bit of a throwback for you original channel viewers. Simply just worked it into the chrome tips with a microfiber. Okay, that still blows my mind 5 years later, whatever it is. You can already see the chrome look coming back. I've barely done anything. Repeating the same on the back boxes and then using a drill to grind back any potential rust. I couldn't fully get it back to bare metal, but it's definitely solid. It's got a bit of a red tinge now from the rust. This is probably the only tatty bit that I've seen, but that's not a hole, it's just the outer layer. But the restoration doesn't end there. We're going to spruce it up just to make it look a bit more in keeping with the rest of the car, and that's by painting the pipework. Now I haven't done this before, so it's going to be a bit of a trial and error situation, but we're going to be using this, which is VHT's flame-proof paint. It's designed to be used on headers, so I can't see it being a problem on a catback. There's the heat ranges there, and that's the silver shade that I've gone for. Now application was pretty straightforward. It's just like using any other rattle can, but I'll zip it up for a second and let you enjoy the process. This is always the exciting bit. I'm not too fussed if it isn't perfect, because the exhaust isn't perfect. Okay, yeah, we did get a bit over the edge. Back box. Sort of decent. Nice, almost too silver against this. Maybe it would be better to paint these along with that, so there's less of a contrast. I'll definitely use this paint again on some other stuff, and I will report back on how it wears. We'll probably get another look at the underside of the Passat anyway in the coming months, and you can have a look for yourself. But yeah, overall pretty good. Now I'll be honest, I do think the back boxes need a lick of paint now, but at the time I just wanted to get the car usable and decided to just reinstall it. But of course, this being a project, the car made it very clear that it did not want to be used, so when I started back up, this is what I got. Now you are right, the car's not meant to be pouring that much smoke at the back and also in the engine bay itself. You also have to throw up a bunch of misfire codes on VCDS, which I gotta admit, on the Passat's sake, it's a nice touch, just add a bit of stress into the equation. I was a bit baffled when it happened, as it wasn't doing any of this before I began the restoration work, but then I remembered the low IQ move I made by leaving the original downpipe hanging down off the flexis for weeks on end. Now just to be clear, there was an exhaust leak when I collected the car from auction. It wasn't very apparent on video, but I was aware of the problem, and it's a very common issue with these VR6s, and it's almost always the flexis. And in regards to that misfire, it's probably because the car is getting an incorrect reading at the rear O2 sensors, which are located after those leaking flexis where it's pouring smoke out of. But I guess on the positive side, we now have our first exhaust mod for the R36, a 200 cell catted downpipe from HG Motorsport in Germany. This is part of their Bullets range. They're quite a popular brand online, so I figured it would make for a good quality part for the build. These are a bit more freer flowing than OEM, but it should still customize the tone somewhat. We'll have to see at the end how it sounds with the original catback. I'm not going to do decals or something like that, because I feel that the VR6 is a very sound sensitive engine. Some of the straight pipe ones sound horrible. I've already experienced it on my old red R32, and I don't want to repeat that. These flexis are also a lot stronger. I've put this underneath to keep the shape, but even when it's off, there's plenty of strength in that. The OEM one would just flop over. But yeah, I'll put a link to this in the description. They also do a full catback section, but I'll see how we get on with that. It's quite pricey. And yeah, I believe they do a downpipe for the R32 if you fancy going for something like that. But yeah, let's get to work, drop this subframe and get this removed. Now, believe it or not, folks, I don't intend to bore you in every video with yet another VW subframe drop, but it's like we can't escape them. I've lost count of how many times I've done this over the past year, but it is what it is. We'll spice things up soon, but all the good stuff does require the boring stuff first. I suppose one benefit of removing something you completely refreshed is that there's no need for a grinder, something which usually goes hand in hand with most of these old Volkswagens. The downpipe removal process was also pretty much the same as what we recently did in the CC teardown, but I'm actually engaged lazy mode on this one and impact gun them all off. 2, 3. That one's loose, as is that one was completely detached. So yeah, you just need to undo that. Yeah, by the way, make sure you undo the front O2 sensor plugs in the engine bay before you head below. You'll remember the back two as are pretty obvious, but these things of course have 4. Oh damn, they planned that. Hey, I was supposed to get that shot, but the downpipe just fell. Can't really tell where it's damaged. It's one of these for sure. We need to swap over the O2 sensors. There's the original cats. O2 sensor socket should make our life a bit easier. Pretty self-explanatory, thread these in. Just going to snug them up with the 22mm spanner. Yep, looks pretty much bang on that. Right, let's get that on the car. So I managed to get the downpipe seated in. I've put one nut on that side. Do the same. It's not fully flush on all 3 corners, but this will hopefully stop it dropping off, because that's the trickiest bit when you're working by yourself. All tight. Just gonna push the heat shield a bit. So that's pretty much perfect. The new clamp slides over and fills the void. Now you tighten these down. Definitely is a nice bit of kit. It's all looking very shiny, and also now that it's in place, we can see the Bullex logo. It's flipped, so when you're looking up the top, it was like backwards, but makes sense now. Hopefully it fixes a misfire as well, but I guess the only way to tell that is to get the car down, start it up and see what it sounds like. Still seems to be quite smoky. Smoke coming from the front as well. Tone's a bit interesting. I think it's definitely still misfiring. I'm gonna turn it off now. I reckon some of that smoke is the WD-40, but I think the misfire is still occurring, probably because there's some codes that are still stored. So I've just loaded up VCDS. It brings up all the list. Yeah, loads of red. Cylinder 3 misfire, random misfire, cylinder 1, 5. So basically 1, 3 and 5. So that's one bank. It will just clear all the DTCs. There you go. That's one way to fix your Volkswagen. Turn it back on. That's getting quite rattly now, so we're going to have to look into that soon. Do another scan for good measure. So it looks like engine status is all clear. So it looks like the downpipe has cured the misfire, because before when I cleared it, it came straight back when I turned the car back on. Obviously the car needs time to adjust. We've changed all the O2 sensors and it's probably all just confused right now. The smoke's died down as well. Before it was pouring out from the engine bay. Right, so it's been about 3 or 4 days since I filmed all of those clips, and I've decided to do a bit of a big U-turn in this video. Essentially, we're going to be pulling the engine out. I'm going to get into the reasons in a second. I didn't really know how to film this segment because it doesn't really make sense for the rest of the video. We've put on the downpipe and now we're going to be taking it off. In fact, I've already gone ahead and removed it. The thing with restoration projects like this, you tend to end up finding that stuff breaks when you remove it. And if you don't replace everything and you put various new bits on like I have, the old stuff can't really keep up. One of the main things I've been struggling with is brake lines and just fluid just leaking everywhere. I know it may seem like a minor thing, but I thought I'd just be honest with you guys, seeing as you've seen me work on this whole thing. Now, to give you an idea of why it's getting quite frustrating at this point, I think it's best we begin right from the start, and that's when we drop the rear end. You may remember that one of the lines that runs along the car snapped where it meets the rear caliper. It was like a U-joint. The thing is, at the time, the OEM brake lines were on back order, and I couldn't quite get an accurate ETA, so I didn't really want to delay the video too much, and I decided to get some copper nickel brake pipes made up at a local place. It's your usual sort of thing, not really a complicated job, but I didn't really have a flaring tool at the time. So I did that, got them on the car, bent them all into shape to match the OEM pattern. But then, knowing my luck, they actually started leaking again eventually once I'd put everything back together. There was a very slight drip at this U-joint right at the bottom, and you can't get those lines out unless you drop the tank, because they basically disappear into there and re-emerge over here, go along the body and into this bracket. But as you can tell by the color of them, these are no longer those copper nickel brake pipes I had made, and that's because they're OEM. Yes, I went ahead and dropped the whole rear end again off camera. All right, so all of this for 2 brake lines. They took about 10 days to turn up, but I thought it's best we do that rather than just, I don't know, creating a joint there and redoing the line. I probably could have done that with my own flaring tool now, because I got quite a good bit of kit, but I just thought let's do it properly. And yeah, surprise, surprise, there's no longer any brake fluid leaks on the rear. I double checked all of these pipes on the calipers, and also got my pressure bleeder up to around 26 PSI. And we're all good. But in typical fashion with one of my projects, that's never the end of that topic. It always re-emerges somewhere else. And in this case, it was up at the front underneath the control arm area. I was a bit puzzled, but then I thought, what could it be? Maybe it's a master cylinder or the brake fluid reservoir. So I thought, let's just address those. And that's what I've been doing for the last few days. I've been working on basically getting that whole system out. I even undid the booster. Pretty much everything came out. I didn't film a lot of it because I thought it won't be the most entertaining job, and we've already spoken enough about brake lines, but here's pretty much what I've gone through. One of these is the original brake fluid reservoirs. I initially thought it might be that because there's a bit of condensation on there, so I went ahead and got a replacement one off the CC. But then I thought, okay, we're doing all of this work, why not replace it with a brand new one? So that's what's in the car currently. And now look what's returned. On the floor, we have a little puddle of brake fluid. I suspected the previous reservoir was cracked, and that was the reason for the leak, but obviously that's brand new. It's got no dampness on it, and the leak is still present. So I'm a bit perplexed at this point, folks. Now, getting that reservoir and master cylinder back in place correctly with the engine still in place was also a nightmare. So if there's anything more hidden below, there's no chance. I'm just going to just take the engine out. I'd rather do that. Even if some of you guys watching are probably thinking, that's an easy fix, why are you dropping the engine? I'm going to do it now because we've had enough practice over the last few weeks. And also, because we have got a bit of a rattle on the timing chain side, we might as well have a look at all that. Not to mention the complete state of this engine bay. There's loads of leaves here and cleanup that we could do. The engine itself is very mucky, and I was eventually going to do this, so let's just do it now. Yeah, I thought I'd get all of that off my chest. I know some of you guys probably have clicked off the video by now because I don't really like having these rambling sessions, but there's no real way to explain it. I mean, it's just been a constant battle of dripping brake fluid, and somehow months have gone by, and I don't really want to just make videos just sporadically because of these silly little issues. That's often why the delays have been, because I've tried to fix things off camera. But yeah, let's just get started. The engine removal process should be largely the same as the CC because it's got the identical engine. Obviously the front end slightly different, but we'll just go with the flow. All right, T25s, a bunch of them on the top. Look at these 210s. Okay, a bit of an interesting shape on this bumper, so I'll clip out from there. And that pushes forward. I was thinking maybe to just take it off with the grille still in place, but I think we need to undo the parking sensors. I think it's easier this way. Be careful with this grille because it's probably very expensive and hard to get. Easier way, just take the whole sensor out. There you go. That's the bumper off. The wire's already unplugged. Smooth. Yep. 16s. Four. Okay. Couple of T30s holding the front panel to the rad pack. You want to undo the bonnet catch before undo the front panel. because obviously the cable is attached. There you go. Straight off the feet. Simple. Nice and easy front end removal. Pretty much the same as any other Volkswagen. Actually feels a bit better built though than some of the others, to be fair. But yeah, typical rad pack for 180,000 miles. Wildlife growing in it. AC up front, main rad in the middle, and fans at the back. Yes, I know it's hanging, but it's going to get replaced anyway. Make sure you get it drained before you undo it like that. Coolant. Bit of a shame, that was all brand new. I am kind of pleased with the call that I made to drop the engine, because if we look here, there's a lot more rust to deal with. This is a coolant line and it's gone completely brittle. I think if I press it anymore, I'll probably make a hole in it. So if I'd started to drive this car, it would have ended up leaking somewhere. And now that we're going to get the engine out, we can inspect it all properly, give it a detailed clean. Because look at the amount of muck that's hidden in these chassis rails, spider webs. Yeah, definitely glad to do it this way. And we can properly call it a restoration, even though we've done all of these bits. Brand new. That's the prop disconnected. Quite a lot of crack in here on this inner donut. I think that is a common problem. So again, seems to be the case that everything needs changing on this car. Starter out. That's already been off before. Shifter cable off. Now, one of the main differences I've noticed between this engine bay and the CC one, even though the engine code's the same, is that the actual R36 has this extra radiator here. It's just one of those performance specific things, but I thought it'd be cool to point out. 3. Cable going into the starter. Ready in terms of what's been disconnected down here. We just need to unplug the engine loom from the ECU. So much dirt on the ECU. We've also got this bracket up here. Okay, that's out. Ooh, deja vu. Ready to drop this. All right, we're going to use the trolley again, even though last time it dropped the other 3.6. Should be okay. Try and lower it onto it. Cool, let's undo the engine mount. Maybe not. That is freed. Hasn't moved much because I have jacked the trolley up, the car down onto it. That was a bit sketch. Another R36 engine taken out. Right, so I just realized the past 3 videos, including this one, we've pulled an engine out in each one. Didn't really expect to do this one so soon, but I'm kind of glad I did. If we just get the light there, you can see that there's a bunch of dirt just caked onto the insides of here. I mean, it's all to be expected. The car's old now. But because we've done the rest of the underside, it makes sense to do this now. There's all sorts of just leaves and clamps tucked behind there. There's obviously all the replacement parts that I put on. Can't really spot any leaks on the new lines or on the reservoir, so it must be one of these lines tucked behind there. Either way, we're going to inspect it all and clean it up in the next episode of this series. Probably won't need protecting in terms of Raptor paint because there's no rust on the chassis, and it'd be nice to keep it blue still. The engine itself still on the table, hasn't fell over. I've learnt my lessons. I'm going to get the engine crane out shortly. The reason why I don't use it to pull it out is because the leveler that I've got, I like bolting it into the mounts, and obviously these are still being occupied when you're trying to pull it out. So we could do that now, and I'll put it onto a tire like the other 3.6 over there. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. Make sure you go down and click subscribe if you do enjoy content like this. I know there was a bit of droning on in the middle explaining the whole switch up, but I'm glad I made that decision because now we're all up to speed and we can basically crack on properly and do this car justice. But yeah, I'll stop talking now and I'll see you in the next video.